For centuries, the moon was a symbol of mystery, poetry, and silence. But in the 20th century, it became a territory of war. Not a war fought with soldiers or bombs, but with cameras, rockets, flags, and propaganda. Amid the greatest political tension of modern history, the United States and the Soviet Union turned the vast emptiness of space into an invisible battlefield. But what if the greatest contest of the Cold War wasn't fought on Earth, but in the collective imagination of humanity? What if the race to the moon was less about celestial conquest and more about psychological dominance? After World War II, the planet didn't find peace. It found division. On one side, the capitalist bloc, led by the United States. On the other, Soviet socialism. It was an ideological clash where every scientific advance became a political weapon, and every technological achievement a message to the enemy. From the Berlin Wall to the Korean War, the world was a chessboard, and the two superpowers were playing for keeps. Nuclear arsenals grew, leaders delivered defiant speeches, and a shadow of fear fell across the globe. This was the Cold War, a conflict where showing strength was as crucial as having it. And the next frontier for this display of power was not on land or sea, but in the stars. It's a chilling reality. The same rocket that carries a satellite into orbit can also carry a nuclear warhead to the other side of the planet. Science and war were never truly separate during this era. They were two sides of the same coin. This becomes painfully clear with Operation Paperclip, a secret American program that recruited German scientists, including former Nazis like Wernher von Braun, the architect of the V-2 rocket. These brilliant minds, once enemies, were now indispensable assets. Their knowledge was funneled into secret military programs, transforming weapons of war into vehicles of exploration. Both the USA and the USSR understood that controlling the high ground of space meant controlling the narrative of progress and power back on Earth. Science wasn't just for discovery. It was a weapon. Then, on October 4th, 1957, the world woke up to a sound it had never heard before. A simple, repeating beep broadcast from orbit. The Soviet Union had launched Sputnik, the first artificial object to circle the Earth. For the Americans, it was a technological Pearl Harbor. The beeping was not just a satellite signal, it was a taunt, a clear message that the Soviets were ahead. Their technological prowess was on full display, shaking the foundations of American confidence. Soon after, they sent the first living creature into orbit. And then, in 1961, Yuri Gagarin became the first human in space, a global hero and a symbol of Soviet supremacy. The Kremlin celebrated, projecting an image of inevitable communist victory. For the United States, the fear was palpable. The leader of the free world was falling behind. Humiliation. That was the feeling across America. The nation that prided itself on being the world's economic and military leader was now second place in the most visible competition on the planet. In the zero-sum game of the Cold War, being behind was simply unacceptable. Alarmist headlines filled newspapers, fueling public anxiety and political pressure. Something had to be done. In response, the U.S. government created NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, pouring billions of dollars into a frantic effort to catch up. It was in this atmosphere of crisis that President John F. Kennedy stepped before Congress in 1961 to make a promise that seemed, at the time, impossible. "We choose to go to the moon in this decade." Kennedy's words echoed around the world. It was an audacious, almost reckless declaration. The technology didn't exist. The challenges were immense, but the goal wasn't purely scientific. Kennedy himself admitted it, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. This wasn't just about exploration. It was a political necessity. It was a clear, unambiguous challenge to the Soviets, and a way to galvanize a nation. Behind the scenes, the decision was a calculated geopolitical gambit. The moon was chosen as the finish line because it was a goal so difficult, so distant, that it gave America a fighting chance to leapfrog the Soviets and reclaim its image as the world's leader. The race was now official. To win this race, America needed a hero. But the man chosen for the most important step in human history was not a typical, swaggering hero. Neil Armstrong was reserved, quiet, a brilliant engineer. He was technical, precise, and emotionally contained. Perhaps that's why he was the perfect choice. In an age of larger-than-life personalities, Armstrong was the consummate professional, a man who could be trusted to execute the mission without letting ego or emotion interfere. His biography is filled with near-death experiences and dangerous test flights, demonstrating a calm under pressure that was almost inhuman. The selection process for astronauts was brutal, testing not just physical endurance, but psychological stability. Armstrong wasn't just a pilot, he was a symbol, carefully chosen to represent the calm, competent face of American ingenuity. The Apollo 11 mission was far more than a scientific expedition. It was the most elaborate television production in history. Every moment was meticulously planned, rehearsed, filmed, and broadcast to an eager planet. This was a spectacle. NASA worked hand in hand with media giants like CBS, with veteran broadcasters anchoring the event for hours on end. Special studios were built, and every camera angle was considered. For the first time, humanity would witness history as it unfolded, live. Hundreds of millions of people, a fifth of the world's population, were glued to their television sets, their eyes wide open, waiting. The moon landing was designed to be a shared global experience, orchestrated by the United States. It was the ultimate stage, and the world was the audience. July 20th, 1969, the grainy black and white image flickers on screens worldwide. A figure descends a ladder, a foot touches the lunar surface, and then the words, "That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind." In that moment, a human being stood on the moon, and billions of people watched in awe. The American flag was planted, a potent symbol of victory, but that step wasn't just human, it was deeply geopolitical. It was the culmination of Kennedy's promise, the definitive answer to Sputnik, and the symbolic end of the space race. America had not just reached the moon. It had broadcast its triumph to every corner of the Earth, including Moscow. It was a checkmate delivered on a cosmic scale. But almost as soon as the celebrations died down, the questions began. Why do the shadows in the photos fall in different directions? Why is there no blast crater under the lunar module? Why does the flag appear to wave in the vacuum of space? Why were so many technical files and transmissions classified for decades? And most mysteriously, why did the Soviet Union, America's bitter rival, never officially contest the landing? Or did they contest it in other, quieter ways? In the shadowy world of the Cold War, information was a weapon, and psychological warfare was a constant reality. Truth wasn't always the objective. Sometimes creating a certain belief was more important than the belief being true. The landing happened, but the narrative around it became a battleground of its own. So perhaps the question we've been asking for 50 years, was the moon landing fake? Is the wrong question. It distracts from a deeper truth. A more insightful question might be, in the context of the Cold War, what narrative needed to be true at that moment? The United States needed to demonstrate its absolute superiority. It needed a victory so undeniable, so spectacular that it would demoralize its enemy and inspire the world. In the Cold War, winning the narrative was just as important as winning a battle. The goal wasn't just to conquer the moon, it was to conquer the minds of people on Earth, to convince them of the power and destiny of the American way of life. The space race ended without a single shot being fired, but it left deep and lasting marks. It propelled science forward at an unprecedented speed, but it also fused technology with political ambition. It gave humanity one of its most inspiring moments, but it also taught us to question the images we are shown and the stories we are told. The moon remains up there, silent and indifferent, a witness to our history. It reminds us that sometimes the greatest victories are not won on a battlefield, but in the hearts and minds of the audience. The moon landing was a scientific marvel, but it was also the single greatest act of political theater ever staged. If this documentary made you think, question, or see history from a new perspective, please like the video and share it with others who enjoy history and geopolitics. And subscribe to the channel for more in-depth documentaries like this one, because understanding the past is the only way to not be deceived in the future. Thank you for watching.